Happy holidays, everybody. Locked on fantasy hockey action, back in the booth and ready to ride for a big second half of fantasy hockey dominance. Thank you for joining us. Today's episode, we're taking a look at some players ready to explode in the second half and take your team over the top. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The turkey is dusted, the stuffing is finished, but we still got a couple of gifts to open up on the latest episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. We're taking a look at some players primed for big-time second-half performances, and I'm excited to talk to you about it on today's episode. Shout out to the everydayers making us your first listen every single day, even through this hectic time in the holidays. Hockey's back, baby. And we got to be tapped into everything going on in the NHL. And that includes, of course, the return of big-time bets, big-time 8-game betting board. Steele and I have our picks ready to ride for tonight. With news being a little bit quiet right now, though, Steele, this is a perfect time for us to look at our favorite 10 players, primed, poised, however you want to put it, for big second-half performances. And I'm intrigued to see who you're looking at. I have no idea what players you have on your list. You can see a few of mine there on the screen. Tap into the YouTube channel if you need to. But over to you, brother, because look, some of these players, and this is how I broke down mine anyway, my 5 on today's episode, we'll do another 5. We'll get to that 10 number on the next episode. My first 5 are somewhat obvious. My next 5 are a little bit more of deeper cuts. So over to you. Who are you looking at? Who do you expect to explode in this second half?
Yeah, I think there's different ways we can look at this list when we talk about players who are poised to break out in the second half of the season. I went with a couple of big names here, starting off with Alex Tuch of the Buffalo Sabers. I think you could really pick anyone from the Buffalo Sabers to really have a spark and have a jump in the second half of the season if they want any chance to make the playoffs this season. So, I mean, you could talk about Tage Thompson, which I will be on tomorrow's episode. We could talk about Rasmus Dahlin, JJ Peterka. Alex Tuch is the guy for me right now. He's still on pace to finish the end of the season with where he was at last year with 59 points. He has 25 points in 35 games. He's a plus 11, which is very surprising for how bad it's been in Buffalo. I mean, he's still throwing his weight around, putting his body on the line with 30 hits and 52 blocks, 78 shots on net, 11.5% shooting percentage, which is exactly what he had to finish off the season last year. I just think he can be a lot better. And clearly, everyone on this team has been struggling over the month of December. He has zero power play. He has 0 power play goals and only 4 power play assists. So this is one of the worst power plays in the league. Buffalo with just above 14% on the man advantage. Again, like I said, only 9 goals for Alex Tuch. Just 2 years ago, he finished with 36 goals and 79 points. I think we can expect a lot more from Alex Tuch, a lot more from a lot of these players in Buffalo. But I think he's a crucial piece because his name's also been out there on the rumor mill, on the trade mill. Potentially people looking at him. I know Dylan Cousins is a name that people have been looking at as well. So I think Alex Tuch is poised for a big second half of the season, especially if Buffalo wants any chance of making the postseason.
I'm so glad that you brought up the Sabres early because I have a player on my list as well, and I'll talk about him on tomorrow's episode. But they all kind of fit the mold because there's also, like, let's be clear, this first half has been abysmal, abomination, throw out whatever lengthy adjective you want. It's been ugly. However, there is far too much good young offensive talent. I don't know what's going to happen in terms of the standings. They're probably cooked there. But in terms of putting together some good hockey and some fantasy performances that are going to really be valuable down the stretch, I look to the Buffalo Sabres immediately. So thank you for putting Alex Tuch on here. Let's get it out of the way early because, as you so astutely put it, I think you could probably throw a number of those players into this hat because there's just too much talent there. So maybe that's a cop-out, but I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to try and keep this tight. I so like that you also are putting out some big names for this episode. We'll get to the deeper cuts perhaps tomorrow. Wyatt Johnston. For me, this is a kid that's done everything since coming into the league, score big goals, perform in the clutch, be able to play out on the wing, up the middle. he only has 6 goals, and he had 9 shots on net the other night, Steele, and this kid is a shooter, and I think if he continues to do that, it's only a matter of time. He's 21 years old, former 23rd overall draft pick. He has all the pieces to be a deadly scorer in this league for a long time coming, and he was just starting to heat up a little bit there. Then went ice cold again. There was those couple of blips. He's up to, I think, 20 points on the season. For me, he jumped off the page immediately when I thought about players that could really explode in the second half, because also Jason Robertson could hit this list. There's been a little bit of disappointing, Miro Heiskanen has been disappointing. I'm not going to expect him to explode. We don't need to go there. You were right. Okay, you were right. Wyatt Johnson, he's on my list. I think if he keeps shooting 93 shots on net right now, I think if he keeps firing that puck on net, this kid is still going to finish with 25. I don't think 30 goals is a bit of a stretch, but I still think he's going to get his here in the second half.
I absolutely love that because I have Wyatt Johnson on this list as well. And like you said, just with the Buffalo Sabres in the same breath, you could really throw anybody on this list to have a bounce back second half of the season or poised to break out in the second half of this season. Jason Robertson, Rupe Hintz, Logan Stankoven as well. I know he's still a young guy, but there's a lot of players on Dallas, even though they're still a really good team. Miro Heiskanen in the mix as well. So I appreciate that love you're sending my way. You got a point to make?
All I was just going to say is it's about the team overall. The Dallas Stars are very middle of the pack in terms of offensive output this year, and the power play near the bottom. They are only clicking at 15.9% right now, which for me is very surprising considering all of the talented names you mentioned. So at some point, this team is anchored by one of the best in the business in Jake Ottinger, balanced blue line, and I think in the front office, Jim Nill is going to make a move to replace Tyler Seguin's absence, and I think that's going to just mean good things for all of these pieces. So Wyatt Johnson hits the list for me big time.
Yeah, I think he will as well make a move. Again, if Dallas is making the postseason, Tyler Seguin should be back in time for the playoffs. But yeah, Wyatt Johnson makes this list as well. I believe currently he's actually centering that third line in between Logan Stankoven and Jamie Benn as of right now. But the lines have been shuffled. They've been shuffled all season long, trying to get this offensive group going. He makes the list for sure because of what he's capable of doing. He's up to over 2 minutes of average ice time from the year prior. So he should be dominating the offensive zone. We know that he's been clutch for the Dallas Stars in crunch time. There's a lot of players from the Stars that could be on this list. However, over to another Western Conference team for me, real quickly before we get to break.
Yes, sir.
Zack Hedman is on this list as well. I mean, he has to be because he's already doing it right now. He has 10 goals in his last 9 games compared to 3 goals in his first 20. He's been popping off for the Edmonton Oilers. We're already seeing him turn a new leaf, turn a new page, however you want to say it. 13 goals, 6 assists for a total of 19 points in 29 games, up to 15.9% shooting percentage. Again, 27 hits, 8 blocks, doesn't really chip in there as much, 82 shots on net. However, he just needs to get back to doing what he does best, and that's driving the net, digging for those rebounds, putting his stick on the ice, and letting Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl find his stick every single time like they do when he's in front of the net. Dig for those pucks, battle against the opponents, obviously in the corners, do all those little things. I think there's more that he can do with his skill set. I don't think we're seeing as much as he's capable of doing. He has some silky soft hands, getting by, using his feet to get by defensemen. Again, I just think Zack Hedman just needs to get back to doing what he's capable of doing. And the easy stuff for him is just going hard to the net. That's what his game is all about. And Connor McDavid will find you. You will get those rebounds in the blue paint and you will capitalize on them like he wasn't doing in the first half of the season. So we're already seeing a new Zack Hedman. Again, I think heading into the second half of this season, he's at 13 goals currently. We knew he was going to have a significant drop off in that category. Right. There's still a possibility that he could pop off and get up to 35 goals by the end of the regular season. I know he's missed 5 or 6 games so far this year, but with 13 goals, there's no question in my mind that he can pop another 20 and get up to 35.
What's interesting, I just mentioned the Dallas Stars power play issues, considering how much talent is on this team in terms of the Edmonton Oilers power play attack and how elite they were in the playoffs and to finish last year with the exact same crew for the most part. They only sit 14th in the NHL right now at 21.6%. So if that even starts to uptick a little bit, Hyman's going to be catching some love as he is deployed on that top power play unit. Fantasy-wise, we got lots more to talk about. We'll be here the rest of the week covering everything going down in the NHL. We got you covered in the holidays time. We also got bets coming up. I'll just leave it at this with Zach Hyman. He's also got his confidence back. The mojo is back cooking, and that's huge. These are players, however, Steele, that if you could perhaps target in a trade, I think that's the angle to really capitalize on. So we'll talk about it more right after the break. Lots more players to get to. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. You want to be that's actually a lie, Steele. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. I am sorry about that. It's been a long holiday season, but we love our friends at Prize Picks. And if you love sports, you're going to love Prize Picks even more. The best place to turn your sports knowledge into real money, whether it's hockey, football, or any of your favorite sports. Prize Picks makes it easy to get in on the action through Picksmas. Right now, you can get 1,000 times your money all holiday season long, where Prize Picks is giving away over $30 million in prizing. Right now, download the app, use code LOCKEDONNHL to get 50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's right, 50 instantly. Prize Picks. Run your game.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day, especially over the holidays. Flip and I appreciate all that love and support you show us. Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning is when you can find our episodes. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. We really do appreciate all that love you've been showing us. So thank you so much for all of that. Over to you, my friend Flip. Where are you looking to next? Second half season breakout, poised for breakouts in the National Hockey League.
So you know how I feel about Carter Verhaeghe, okay? So let's get it out of the way now. That 9 goals through 36 games after he put up a 42 piece, and then last year followed it up with 34 goals in 76 games. 9 goals for me isn't even scratching the surface. And I understand that 27 points through 36 games. He's got 54 hits. He's got 109 shots on net. Fantasy-wise, it hasn't been a complete disappointment. But for me, considering how good this Florida Panthers team is, how he has proven through his kind of steady progression as a fantasy stud, right? It kind of started on the peripheral Steele and moved his way into being a lethal piece. Let's not forget how good he's been in the playoffs, clutch goal scoring. I think this is a perfect time that you might be able to get a piece of Carter Verhaeghe on the cheaps because he has been kind of operating under the radar. This guy's a killer, Steele. I'm telling you, he's going to have a better second half. You can't keep a good man down, especially on a good team like the Florida Panthers. They are one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference still. So when I look at a guy like Verhaeghe sitting at 9 through 36, I could see that still finishing at like 29 or even higher if he goes on a sustained clip. Is that a bold take? Perhaps. But he is poised for a big second half just because of how good I know that guy can shoot the puck. Very underrated shooter.
Yeah, I like Carter Verhaeghe as well. I was taking a look at him, and I actually left him off the list. He will be an honorable mention for me.
Appreciate that.
But yeah, Carter Verhaeghe for what he's capable of doing. I just think when I look at this Florida team overall, even with Matthew Tkachuk right now, I mean, offensively, this team is just they just flow together. There's not one guy above another. They just work together as a team. And for me, that in that case, I just left Carter Verhaeghe off this list because of that, because I think that Florida is going to be fantastic no matter what, but it's never just one guy. So Carter Verhaeghe still has all of that in his arsenal, all in his bag, and he could pop off in the second half of the season. I'm just going to leave him off the list. He's an honorable mention for me. I went somewhere else in this with this list. Owen Tippett is a guy that I really, really like, and I think he's really close to popping off and really making a name for himself with the Philadelphia Flyers, with the in the National Hockey League. And this is a Flyers team that, again, it's really hard to get behind them and support them, especially when they've been in this rebuild mode, struggling year after year now. You know, I'm still not a huge fan of John Tortorella, but he's kind of making me come over to that side again, making me support him a little bit. There's just a lot of young names here, and some of them haven't worked out. I think Owen Tippett will, and he needs to be a key player and a key factor in them turning into a really big NHL team that can be in contention on a year-to-year basis. We're seeing the light with Matvei Michkov. We know what Travis Konechny can do offensively. You know, there's Travis Sanheim on the blue line who's really shone bright as well this season. We're still waiting for Jamie Drysdale to maybe potentially do something with his caliber of skill set as well. Owen Tippett for me, 11 goals, 11 assists for 22 points in 35 games this season. Over the last 2 years, 49 points and 53 points. He has the skill set. He has the soft hands. He has the speed. He has everything that you need to do. It's really just trying to incorporate that into a consistent basis with those pieces around him, with Travis Konechny, with Michkov, with Sanheim, with all these other guys, young guys in their core now. Owen Tippett, me, I believe he's still only, he's 25 years old, soon to be 26 in February. He's 1999, just like me. I think he's very close to making a huge name for himself, especially in Philadelphia, and being a key piece for them. So I like Owen Tippett. I expect him to do a lot more the second half of the season because, honestly, I was fairly disappointed for the first month and a half of the year. But 22 points in 35 games. I think he can do a lot more, especially in that goal department. He has a rocket of a shot. He needs to use it more.
This could be one of those situations because, like, just immediately here, I'm thinking if you can perhaps, like, put Tippett with a Verhaeghe, maybe throw a piece at somebody, make some trade offers here, and you get two guys that are set to pop off. And obviously, predicting them and that actually happening is two different things. But that could be really the difference for your team over the top down this second half, because especially if you're sitting right outside of that bubble, you're going to have to get creative with your fantasy roster here. I got some moves up my sleeve, Steele, so the leagues better get ready. Big boy in last place is coming up the rear heavy. Now, in all seriousness, though, so Wyatt Johnson, we both agree. I was also on you with Zach Hyman. He's on my list for today, and you just took one that I wanted to talk about on tomorrow's episode in Owen Tippett. So I'll just say this. I think the point that you're highlighting the best here and why he has kind of had that bit of a slow start coming on strong now and poised for the second half, you alluded to it. Lots of young players that are just really starting to find their game. John Tortorella, it takes time with these young guys, and I think as they start to get more settled in this second half, it's even better. So great point. Love Owen Tippett. Absolute slam dunk second half breakout. Absolutely. Look, this one's the most obvious, I think. Perhaps. I got my last two obvious guys here. Conor Bard, 9 goals, 30 points through 35 games. For most 19-year-olds, 30 points in 35 games, you'd probably feel really good about it. 3 game-winning goals, 85 shots on net. He's just that good. How can he not explode in the second half when he started somewhat slow? He's coming on too, Steele. The last 2 games, 2 goals, 2 assists. The problem here is the Blackhawks and how bad they are. But I just think, considering what we've already seen from this kid, and I know the injury last year kind of clipped off what would have been a really, really good rookie year. I think now a little bit of a reset in the off time away from the ice. I love Conor Bard. I know there's been a lot of GMs out there frustrated because they probably took him very high, which is, at your own peril. However, to me, far too good. I think just this mental reset on the second half, I would really expect Conor Bard to double down on his points very quickly here, starting this week.
Yeah, and honestly, there's still so much the Chicago Blackhawks need to do to help Conor Bard. Again, to me, Tyler Bertuzzi was not the answer. Teuvo Teravainen was not the answer. As much as they were solid for the first week and a half of the season, they're not guys you really want to be playing with Conor Bard. And there's no one really on the blue line. I know Seth Jones, still injured, I believe, has come back and still hasn't really been the defenseman that they've wanted since acquiring him years ago now. It's a tough time in Chicago, but I believe Conor Bard can turn it around in the second half of the season. Just needs to keep shooting the puck a little bit more. My last guy before we get to break, I'll try to make this as quick as possible. I think Morgan Rielly could be a lot better. On the blue line, he's only got 18 points in 35 games this season. He's a -9, 15 penalty minutes. He's shooting the puck, only 61 shots on net, 52 blocks and 14 hits. He's actually down 2.5 minutes of average ice time from the year prior. Obviously, for me, it's really just, a lot of his points come from the power play, which the Toronto Maple Leafs struggled in the month of November, started to pick it up a little bit throughout December. But yeah, only 1 power play goal and 6 power play assists to show for it this season compared to what he finished with last year. I just think when you have a guy who's mostly quarterbacking the power play, I know Oliver Ekman-Larsson was in there, a couple of times as they were trying to get it going a little bit. When you have players in Mitch Marner who are over a point per game, John Tavares, William Nylander, all these guys, I think, they're obviously a lot better defensively as a group with all the guys they brought in, Chris Tanev and Oliver Ekman-Larsson. But I think offensively, Morgan Rielly can just be a lot better, jumping up in the play, finding those guys, seamless passes. Again, only 18 points to show for it this season compared to 58 points in 72 games last year. So real quick, I think Morgan Rielly can be a lot better. And that also maybe depends on the fact that Austin Matthews has been out of the lineup as well.
Yeah, that's a bit of a tougher one for me. And it's funny because I thought about Morgan Rielly as well, only because he's been kind of mostly unheralded and unheard of this season. And the ice time, I think, being spread around to Ekman-Larsson and Chris Tanev, perhaps playing into that a little bit. But you're right about the power play. And this is the Toronto Maple Leafs we're talking about. I have a Toronto Maple Leaf player that I want to talk about on tomorrow's episode. We'll get to bets. Let's go there, though, Steele, because, look, I got one more player, but I'll save it for after the break.
After the break, big time bets coming up as well. This episode, though, is brought to you by Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That definitely happened to me. It happens to me every single year. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit for the total of the year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all the app's premium features. I've used it to cancel services I wasn't even aware of anymore, and I've already saved so much money. Plus, with their goals features, I've been able to automatically set aside money for my future. No more stressing about budgeting every single month. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. You got to go check them out today. And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. We're going to get over to big time bets very, very quickly. But first, Flip, last player you think is the breakout second half of the season?
This is probably the hardest sell considering how good Alex Ovechkin was at the start. So maybe breaking out isn't the right word, but I just expect him to return and feast. And here's my 2 angles at this. One, this is clearly a motivated player. He wants this record bad and he wants it now. But you add in the wrinkle of everything we've spoken about, you and I, at length about the Washington Capitals, and so has everyone. Clearly a much improved team. That's got him going to another level. And the third angle is here. The fact that he has kind of progressed this quickly with the injury and had a little bit of time to, let's be clear, only playing 18 games now, Steele. He's going to come back somewhat rested, I think, and fresh, ready to go. So maybe I'm reading into that in the tea leaves a little bit too much, and it's like, Flip, he already was red hot, so how can he get even hotter? This is Alex Ovechkin. And with this record in sights and perhaps another run at Lord Stanley, I think Ovi comes in and literally gets shot out of a cannon. You've heard that term before, and I think this is going to be very fitting for this player. 15 goals, 10 assists, and 25 points in 18 games. He is one of those fantasy pieces that I think it's safe to say this season, Steele, you were probably able to get him in a very excellent round, and he was probably the reason you were hovering around the top of the league. So if you've been patient and you didn't try and, I know some guys sold Ovi off, right? Even with the injury before you thought it was going to be more long-term, and they traded him and got stuff back. If you are those GMs that either hung on or got Ovi, buckle up, because I think he is right at the top of the list for me for players that I expect to have very big second halves.
I like that, especially since I've got Ovechkin
in
a few of our leagues. So I've actually been offered a couple of trades for Ovechkin over the holidays. I turned them down. There's no way he's leaving my team right now. Because I agree with you. I think he's going to come back and just be shot out of a cannon, hasn't lost a step, just jump right back in with Dylan Strome and get going offensively. I'm looking at big time bets, though. Lots of games. We've had 3 days of no NHL, no hockey games. It's back, though, December 27th, Friday. We're getting after it. Big time bets. I've got 3 picks. I'm going to make it very simple for everybody out there. I'm just going to rattle them all off. First pick, Leafs money line against the Detroit Red Wings. You and I talked about this. Detroit is always just the team that seems to choke in the third period, always ruin your parlays. I'm leaving them in the dust in 2024. Leafs on the money line. We're going with the blue and white over here for the first pick. I'm also going with the Sabers on the money line against the Chicago Blackhawks. They finally get off the schneid. They get a big win before the break. The Blackhawks are coming into town. Like I just said, Alex Tuch, Tage Thompson, all those guys, they need to start turning things around right now if they want any chance to make the postseason. And it starts now with Chicago. Sabres on the money line for the second pick. Third pick of the night, Jim Montgomery is turning this team around for me. St. Louis Blues on the money line at home against the Nashville Predators. You're actually getting a plus 105 odd for those Blues as well, who have been pretty decent as well since he took over behind the bench. They're 4-4-2 in their last 10 games. Nashville Predators are 4-5-1. They're relatively the same right now. I'm going to take the plus money with the Blues at home for my lock of the night.
The plus money, you're selling it to me as well. I like it. That looks like one of those situations, Steele, that clearly the new head coach has given a little bit of life to a lineup that was somewhat listless, a bit of an average club still in general, and Nashville's just a mess. So I'm going to personally stay away with it, but I'll hit you with my 3 picks. And this is a tough couple of days to handicap, so just dial the bets back. But I think I got 3 spots that I really like. The Wild at the Stars. This one's jumping off the page as an under. I'm seeing them sitting around at 5.5. I'm going to do 6.5, and I'm going to put all 3 of these picks together in a parlay, so the odds will be much more worth our while. Wild at Stars has also gone under the number in 6 of their last 10 meetings. I believe the last time out it was like 2-1 or something like that. Very low scoring between these 2 teams, so hit me with the under. My second pick that I'm liking, the Colorado Avalanche have wins in 7 of their last 9 games, and that offense is really starting to wake up. Nichushkin has been important there. They are 6-2-2 in their last 10 against Utah. Hit me with the Avs against Utah on the money line. Love that one, and my favorite pick, Canes roll into New Jersey. They're going to kick off the second half, Steele, with a big Metropolitan Division meeting here, and already a lot on the line for 2 teams that are neck and neck there in the Metro Division. I think the Devils are in first and the Canes are in third. However, when I'm looking at this one, I'm also going to put the number at 6.5 and take the under as my lock of the night. And I got a couple of angles why. The total under the number in 6 of Carolina's last 7 games. They are also under the number in their last 5 times playing against the New Jersey Devils. I don't know if that one's right. I'm going to double check it. But the total, I know for a fact, 10 straight games overall for the New Jersey Devils under the number. With the big-time atmosphere that I expect in this one, head-to-head, this is going to mean a lot at the end of the season. I'll stop talking. Canes, Devils, I'll take it at 6.5 and the under as my lock of the night.
I usually stay away from the overs and unders after a couple of day breaks just because, again, over the holidays, you never know what's coming over. I'm actually feeling the over 5.5 in that Wild Stars game. I just think there's going to be a lot of goal scoring with those offensive groups. Maybe we see Wyatt Johnston get going a little bit earlier than expected. But I would personally I would go with the over in that game. I do like the under in the Devils Hurricanes game, with Jacob Markstrom and Kochetkov. Again, Metropolitan Division, top dogs right now. Those are the picks. Those are the lock of the nights for Friday, December 27th. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. For your second listen, make sure you check out the Locked On NHL podcast. You can find the link in the description below so you don't have to go searching for it. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. From both Flip and I, we wish you good luck with your weekly matchups, your bets. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. It's only 2025 is only 4 days away. We're getting after it, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.